Hello and welcome to the Wisden Cricket Weekly podcast. Loads to get through today. The ovals are through, or effectively through, to the 100 final. We've got Cheteshwar Pujara's retirement from the professional game. Where does he rank among the pantheon of great number threes? We've got a Secretary of State on the show to talk about a new government initiative. We also ask her about whether or not cricket should return to free-to-air TV. There's a record-breaking score for Australia, chat around next summer's blast, and, of course, the Metro Bank Minute. I'm Yas Rana, and with me today is Ben Gardner. Later in the show, you will hear from Mark Butcher, Jo Harman-McGowan, and, for the first time, Lisa Nandy. We're going up in the world. Hey, Ben.
I like for the first time, as if she might be a return guest.
Well, given her job, I think it's very, very plausible that she comes back on the show. Right, before we move on, our live show is completely sold out. There was priority access and discounts for the Patreon community. They've snapped them all up. We will be doing more live show in the future. We're thinking about potentially doing one after the Ashes, depending on how the Ashes goes, of course. A reminder that we are very busy on the old Patreon. This week we have a county podcast on the One Day Cup and a selection panel where we pick an all-time, well, not quite all-time, a Test 11 based purely on 21st century Test cricket. And from next week, dailies on the England-South Africa ODI. So plenty for you to get stuck into there. All that as well, and I should mention too, access to the Discord community. One thing, this is a message from one listener, Tony, who said, one thing that should be added to the Patreon plug, a mention of this wonderful Discord filled with knowledgeable and passionate fans, plus a few others. Yes, the Discord community is one of the best things about the Patreon membership. So if you're looking for like-minded cricket fans, head to the Discord. We're going to kick things off with the 100. Ben, we know that Oval will be in the final. They're effectively mathematically confirmed. I think you worked out that the Trent Rockets will need to win by something like 200 runs to usurp them today. They will face the winner of Freddie Flintoff's Northern Superchargers and Andy Flower's Trent Rockets. Some really good games over the last week. Southern Brave defending 125 against the Welsh Fire by just 4 runs. Matt Henry for the Fire, conceding just 6 runs from his 20 deliveries. Jofra Archer amazing for the Brave, taking 3 for 20. Zach Crawley's been in really good touch across a couple of games for the Superchargers. There was an extraordinary game that we were both at Keir Oval last week, where the Invincibles at one point needed 102 of 40 and somehow won with 11 balls remaining after they took 51 from a 10-ball barrage. Sam Curran doing most of the damage, Jordan Cox applying the finishing touches. That was an extraordinary game.
Yeah, and I think it gets more and more mad the more you drill down onto the sort of the white hot centre of that partnership, which I think was mostly Sam Cook. He was the bowler who sort of felt the brunt of it. So I think the best stat, I think, is 49 off 7 legal deliveries at one point, which shouldn't be possible. Obviously, two runs for a no ball helps, and bowling a few no balls helps, and that kind of thing. But it was it was just extraordinary. And this is the 100, right? It's a platform for all the talent in English cricket, even outside those who are the household names. Obviously, Curran has done things in English cricket, but is currently outside the team. Cox maybe in the future will be that name, but this was a moment for them, in a really high quality game of cricket, to show just how talented they are, and that's what it was. It was those two, and I think the thing with Cox is you're seeing all the sort of the range to his game. I mean, it's tempting to say he sort of handed the initiative over to Curran in this. Actually, it happened so quickly. There was no sort of initiative handing over. It was just like
Curran was 7 off 12 before the Trent Rockets took a strategic timeout. So I'm not sure what they quite discussed in the strategic timeout, but it didn't work. But yeah, another amazing day for Sam Curran and another amazing day for Jordan Cox. Brilliant side. We talk about how they have honed in on a group of players who have been with them for the entirety of the 100. That's the core of the team. But someone like Jordan Cox, we've talked about him a lot over the last few weeks, but for good reason. Him and Curran have just been so dependable in that middle order. And yeah, Rob Key was talking about what those guys need to do to get into the England squads on a recent Sky Cricket podcast. And essentially was saying that for both of them, Curran now viewed more as a batter than a bowler. They just need to be as consistent as possible, keep banging on that door.
It's what they did last year as well over Invincibles, right? They like you actually go through the lineup and there's not like Rashid Khan is obviously a world star, but there's not a bankable like England star in there. Jax is the closest, but even him, we'll discuss it more next week about him versus Rian Ahmed. But they almost a bit like Surrey do at their best. If you can get those players who are just like on the fringes of England, or if like England have had a look at and gone away from, then actually it's funny how that seems to also be working in the 100 maybe, because it gives you that balance of player across sort of the whole thing. I don't know, but like last year, I remember the final, it was Saqib Mahmood, wasn't it? He bowled that brilliant spell, and that kind of rejuvenated his career. And you look at that side, it's not got the Billings captain Cox, Curran, Mieye, who will be a player but not yet. Curran, who they've had a look at, gone away. Clark, who's a bit older but is such a good player at this level. Sauter, who's sort of in a similar kind of bracket of like a such dependable white ball performer. Somehow they've hit that sweet spot, even though it shouldn't matter in the 100, but that's what they've landed on.
Yeah, totally insane. The way Trent went from being overwhelming favourites to not having a hope within about 10 minutes is amazing. The Superchargers lay down a marker in beating the Invincibles at Headingley after putting on 198. They've got a really stacked top order. And Joe Root played a blinder for the Rockets, 64 not out as they chased down 152, 7 down with 1 ball left spare against Welsh Fire. None of the middle order got in really, and they won with Sam Hain at number 9 hitting 4 off 2 to get them home. They needed 14 off the last set of 5, bowled by Chris Green. Root hit the first ball for 6, the second ball for 4 before Hain got it done with a boundary to finish. Scorecard looks a bit weird with Sam Hain as a specialist batter at number 9, but I quite like it because I think too often teams almost feel obliged to field a bowler at 8 or 9, but if you have lots of bowling in your top 7, as the Trent Rockets do through Rahan Ahmed, who's been batting the top 4, and George Linder, who's made a really big impact since joining them, if you've got that much bowling, why not pick a batter at 8 or 9? Oval did it the other day with Miles Hammond. We're interesting to see what they do in the final now that Rashid Khan's not with them anymore. But you can only bowl 100 balls. So having 7 or 8 bowlers, sure, it gives you options, but quite often you won't actually be using that player that much, and having an extra batter lower down gives you depth. And we saw here, sure, Root did the vast majority of the work, but having Sam Hain, one of the best domestic players in the country, come in at number 9 must be such an annoying sight for the bowling side.
Yeah, it's also, on the Root thing, it's one of those weird, slightly weird 100 scorecards that you get where he's batted through the innings and yet only end up with 64 to his name in a chase of 152, but not scored slowly because he's, I guess, not had as much of the strike. But I guess there's 2 things. One, it's just very, very flower, isn't it, to have just so many all-round options, basically. There's only really 2 guys in that team, well, apart from the keeper, Tom Moores, Banton, Holden don't bowl. The rest all do. And then also it's only Cook and Ferguson that don't bat. And I guess there's also something interesting in like what is actually like it's such a weird question to think about. But if you do want your number 8 to just be there for their batting, or number 9 even, like what do you want them to do? There's one school of thought that's like, I want that player to have a good chance of hitting A6 if they have to come in and face 1 or 2 balls. Or, as kind of feels like the case, Sam Hayden obviously does hit the 4 as well, but there's a chance, like it almost feels like it's going to be more crucial to game, or maybe feel more crucial at least, that it's going to be this kind of situation, end of a tight chase, batter who is set, and you just want someone who is like, sort of who knows the game, is like basically good at batting, so they can get that single first ball almost to get the other person on strike and then kind of leave it over to them. And that's something that maybe you've got like a sort of a biffer down there. They're going to be either swinging and completely missing, or connecting and either getting caught or hitting it for 6. And actually you can see why sort of almost like a strike rotation player down there could be a way to go finishing wise. So that's where it's interesting that it is Sam Hain who is down there, rather than they could shuffle the order and get Sam Hain further up, but then you've got Root to do that job. And maybe there might be times when he's also almost sort of like Root insurance. Maybe if Root falls early, Hain can come in. But
in the game against the Invincibles, they had Hain at 8 and Max Holden at 9, and they not only have Rahan and George Linder, they want Marcus Stoinis and David Willey in that top 7 as well. I just think it just gives them so much insurance. And number 7s don't face many balls in T20 cricket. They obviously face even fewer in the 100. And I just think it gives you a reliable strike rotator. I think a big part of the 100 and how it differs to normal T20 cricket is you have so many fewer times when the batters essentially swap ends, where there's a change of ends. And that means that you see way more examples of players essentially getting stuck off strike. You see really in players, suddenly you can almost see them having to rediscover their rhythm because they go face 2 balls in a 15-ball spell, and that disrupts the momentum of an innings. And I think actually having handy strike rotators lower down the order is no bad thing. And finally on the 100, Ben, you want to issue a public apology to Hilton Cartwright.
Hilton Cartwright, I'm very sorry. I sort of tongue-in-cheek said last week that maybe it's an indicator of, something about the 100 that Southern Bros 2 overseas were you and Michael Bracewell. Well, and then I think pretty much the very next day against Welsh Fire, Michael Bracewell.
I think it was the next day, wasn't it?
Yeah, Michael Bracewell 8 off 12, so I've still got my eye on him. But Hilton Cartwright 51 off 19, 5-6, and in a low-scoring thriller as well, when they only made 129, coming in at number 7 in that game when Southern Brave were completely dead. One of the innings of the 100 really, albeit for a side that aren't going to threaten the latter stages. But yeah, I mean, he's one of these big Australians that can hit a ball really far, and that's what he did. And he's also, I think it was maybe more about star power than it was about actual quality. And he's been in England for quite a long time at this point. Through the Blast was good in that to earn this
he was
spot.
amazing, the Blast,
exactly.
And I don't think he would have been on anyone's radar because he's not someone who plays a lot of franchise cricket. He obviously played loads and loads in the BBL. He's played a handful of games in the 100 before, played 5 games for Oval in 2022, but that's basically it. But he comes in for Hampshire this year, and I'm pretty sure that was only because those South African wonder kids were unexpectedly called up for that Zimbabwe Test series. Comes in, properly whacks it, strikes 197, comes in as a late replacement for Faf du Plessis, and it's worked out pretty well. But yeah, all I'd say is you weren't obviously following Hampshire in the Blast close enough. Otherwise, you'd have never written him off.
Well, and any other professional cricketers who want to get Jinx back into form, or not even back into form, just to have a great day, then they get in touch. But it's striking at 170 in T20 cricket this year. I mean, that Australia side is pretty strong, but a guy keeps doing that is going to be part of the conversation at some point.
Yeah. A reminder that we have collaborated with Hertfordshire-based brewery Mad Squirrel to revive the Wisden beer range, featuring firstly the Little Wonder, the nickname of John Wisden, which is a 4.7% pale ale bursting with tropical fruit, layered with aromatic herbs and anchored by a bold, weighty bitterness. The second beer in this short but sweet lineup is the Afternoon Session, which, as the name suggests, is the perfect choice for an easygoing cricketing afternoon. This 3.8% gluten-free pale ale is light, fruity, and effortlessly drinkable. I can confirm that I've extensively sampled both of our new offerings, and they do the business each time. So a wholehearted personal recommendation from me there. You can head to the Mad Squirrel website to create your custom packs of 6, 12, or 24 beers with free next day delivery. Find the link in the description below, and trust me, you will not be disappointed. News from India this week. Cheteshwar Pujara has retired from professional cricket. A stalwart in that India side for over a decade, 103 test matches, an average pushing 45, 19 hundreds, 7th on India's all-time list of centurions. Ben, we live in a world where there are fewer and fewer, not only old school number 3s, but just specialist number 3s, full stop. Pujara was a throwback with that exemplary technique, but a yearn for the grind and absorbing pressure in an era where it became all about applying pressure. And with that thoroughly 20th century strike rate of 44, how highly rated should he be among the best number 3s of the last 25 years?
Top 5? Maybe don't ask me to make a list, but it's one of those things where actually it shows how hard the job is. That actually there are fewer number 3s who have done the job for a really long time and put up a really big body of runs. That even just to do that is impressive. And then there's everything else that goes on with Pujara, with the bedrock of this brilliant India side. A massive part of 2 statements of 2 sort of all-time overseas series wins, really, which we're gonna get to, and in an era that was tougher for batting. He averaged 44 at number 3 overall. Abhishek Mukherjee did a good piece in the site saying the global sort of contemporaries in his time averaged 38, so he's a distance better than the rest. And I think the thing there's a couple of things with him. One of them is that, like, you can almost, we'll talk about the stuff overseas, but you can almost forget about the quality at home because of how good India were. And some of those hundreds that just seem in hindsight like sort of routine, whilst one of the great Indian players has made 100, and yet like someone had to do it. And also those wickets clearly weren't always that easy for batting, because then India's bowlers will come on and roll people out for 250, and these were often sides they were playing against with good spinners with brilliant quicks in them, and he would be able to just completely nullify them. So it's not like we should discount that in that conversation. But then there is also the...
And also there's a reason why they were really good, is that they had really good players, and Pujara was one of them.
Exactly, yeah. And he was, and it's just a great story. I mean, obviously he idolised Rahul Dravid. That was his obviously you can see it just watching him, but it's also true that he did idolise him. And on his Test debut, I think he comes in actually at number 5, maybe in that, with Dravid at number 3, and gets like a shooter first ball. It's like, welcome to Test cricket from Mitchell Johnson, shooter first ball, third ball, and pin WW. They're chasing 200-ish against Australia, and he gets promoted above Dravid in the chase. And he actually, he could score fluently and scores like a quick sort of 70 odd to see them home, sort of this, and that's the start of this great career. And the kind of you couldn't, almost apart from maybe could have ground out that 70 over sort of 300 ball or something, you couldn't script succeeding Rahul Dravid in that sort of way. And it's also a marker of, we talk about, having to succeed these great Indian players. How long has it been since India have had a debate over who their number 4 is? And, Gill now looks like he's got that in the bag for a little while as well. But actually, that number 3 just transitioned so seamlessly over. And Pujara is was a worthy successor to Rahul Dravid, who is one of the best number 3s we've known.
And he's been a bit of a mess since he was let go from the side as well. There was a stat doing the rounds during the England-India series that I think over the last year for Indian cricket, there'd barely been a case of a number 3 getting back-to-back games, let alone series at number 3, just showing how hard it is to find someone in that slot. So what does Abhishek say in his piece? Because it's a proper number-led deep dive into how do we assess his career. Because as you say, he straddled 2 very different eras. He got sort of the back half of the batting-dominated dominant era, but then also actually a good 5-6 years in an era that was dominated by seamers and spinners in the subcontinent.
Yeah, well, I'd say the most revealing thing is that that statistic about comparing number 3s to their global contemporaries. But then there is also just the focus on Australia, which is such a massive part of the Pujara story. So
let's move on to Pujara in Australia. So how effective was his method, particularly in Australia? So he was central to India's 2 series victories there in 18-19 and 2021. And 2021 is rightly remembered as the standout Indian Test series victory, maybe ever, one of the greatest series of all time, because India were without so many of their first choice players. I totally understand that. But and Pujara had a very good series. Even though he averaged under 35, he had several really important contributions in that series. But Pujara was player of the series in 18-19. And I know that a lot of people sort of look back at that series and put an asterisk against it because Australia were without the banned trio. So their batting was much weaker than it ordinarily is. But at the same time, Pujara scores 520 runs from 4 test matches. It includes 194 runs in that 31-run win at Adelaide, then hundreds at the MCG and the SCG as well. And as much as Australia were a weakened side, their bowling attack wasn't. It was the big 3+ line for all 4 test matches. And you look at that attack, that Australian attack is already going down as one of the greatest groups of bowlers that a team has had at the same time ever. They have lost 2 series at home as a group. Pujara has been utterly central to both of those series wins. What is it about Pujara in Australia that was so effective?
Well, I think partly it is temperament. It's temperament and technique, the 2 things that you need as a batter, right? And his temperament is obviously, we know that it's completely unflappable, and that is actually a big part of the battle when you're facing that kind of high-paced bowling. Is do you have the stomach for it, basically? And he is always going to. He's not going to get ruffled by a ball that rears up or that hits him on the arm. He is just going to settle down and play the next ball. And his technique was just like it's such a solid defense for facing fast bowling. So I mean, we can talk about, I guess, the stuff outside of Australia overseas, but in Australia, that's where that really, really came to the fore. And you can just, I mean, the one that stands out for me is in the first test of that series when he makes 123, next highest score of 37 in that innings out of a total of 250. And that's in a game that India gone to win by 31 runs. Like that is proper, like, you know, you're in the very highest echelons of innings by an Indian batsman overseas kind of thing in that. And then to sum them up as well, I guess, India kind of foot on the throat going into that, it's 1-1 going to that third test of the series, isn't it? And it's sort of like, you know, Australia kind of come back into it when people maybe didn't expect them to, and he makes 106 off 319 in the first innings of that game. So they declare having only made 443, scoring at 2.6, but that's basically just ground them down for long enough that Bumrah then runs through them, and then they're able to. And then he kind of, in the last game, it's like 190 again, just batting them completely out of the test, kind of no thought of winning it. Sort of is remembered a bit more for Pant's emergence, but it was also Pujara's. It's crowning glory.
It's pre-WTC, so back then you're 2-1 up away from home. There's no thought about getting the win if you don't have to.
Exactly, yeah. But it's interesting because that's his crowning glory, but also in some ways his kind of last big flourish. He makes one more 100, which in the third innings against Bangladesh in a game India up by loads in. I do think though that I don't want to brush over 2020-21 from his personal point of view, because there was that Sydney test that's remembered for the Vihari-Ashwin partnership when Ashwin would miss the next test when Vihari had the hamstring. Pujara makes 77 off 205 in that to sort of set the foundation for them to maybe chase it. And there was, I think, one of the best things for, I guess, the last sort of 10 years, maybe a bit less of Test cricket, has been watching him bat with Rishabh Pant, like two men, both basically doing it like unlike anyone else in the world. Pant like throwing himself all about the place, and Pujara very content just to absolutely just sit on his bat for as long as it took and just have fun watching this kid do crazy things at the other end. And they did that at Brisbane as well, when again in that chase that's remembered for Pant and for Gill and for but Pujara again makes 56 off 211 in that. And that's the final evidence of how that can work, because he faces so many balls in that series. Australia kind of coming again and again at India, and it is just on that last day that they just can't find that one last thing, and that's when the dam bursts and India kind of break through it and seal that series win. But absolutely would not have happened without Pujara, who was by the end an adult with loads of kids around him.
What's your stat around Pujara in Australia?
Yeah, so if you look at so this is just for players who have all of their balls faced sort of available. If you look at balls faced per innings in Australia, with a cutoff who've played more than sort of a handful, more than 7 tests, he is 5th of all time, and ahead of him is Edrich, Hammond, Sutcliffe, and so he's 4th all time behind Edrich, Hammond and Sutcliffe. And so, modern days, no one comes close to him. He's facing 126 balls per dismissal or per innings in Australia, which is mad.
That is mad. I think the best way to illustrate it for me is the effect he had on the balance of the Australian side. So going into that first test of the series, the Australian vice-captain under Tim Payne was Mitch Marsh. Mitch Marsh is dropped for that first test. He's dropped for the second test match, comes in for the third, bowls loads of overs, but is dropped for Peter Hanscom effectively for the fourth test match. Basically, since then, Australia don't go into many games without an all-rounder. Obviously, the emergence of Cam Green and since Bo Webster helps with that team configuration. But I think Australia have realised however good the big four are, especially when it's flat, they need support in the bowling attack. And I think Pujara in 2018-19 was the guy who reinforced that more than ever. But yeah, I think brilliant player, not obviously in the top bracket of all-time great batters, but certainly one of the more, in many ways, I actually really enjoyed watching him bat. I think the technique was so aesthetically beautiful. There was a lot of players, they defend as a last resort, whereas there was such deliberate decision making in the Pujara defence, and it was still played with real intent, almost a different sort of intent, but still intent. There was news this morning that Ravichandran Ashwin has announced his retirement from the IPL, which frees him up to participate in other leagues around the world. So we could see him in the 100 next year, which would be fun. But more likely, the SA20 looks like an option, given the timing of this announcement around the draft stuff that happens there. Next up, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, Lisa Nandy, talks to Jo Harman-McGowan about the recent government announcement around funding 2 new cricket domes that will be built in Lancashire and Luton. £1.5 million has been pledged for it. But while welcome, this is a significant drop in what former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak promised last year. He spoke of a potential £35 million investment that could supply generational change for the sport. The plan then was to build 16 domes by 2029, and a significant portion of that £35 million to be divided between the charities ACE, Chance to Shine and Lord's Taverners, with the aim of getting more state-educated children playing the game. Following the announcement that cricket will not be getting that £35 million, Chance to Shine gave us the following statement. Chance to Shine is proud to have inspired over 7.3 million children through cricket in the last 20 years, but there is still so much more to do. This is about more than cricket. It's about using the sport to teach vital life skills and improve the well-being of young people in state schools. Naturally, we are disappointed not to secure funding, but we are focused on new opportunities with the government and the ECB to grow our impact. In particular, we believe the government's newly announced school sports partnership would be an excellent fit with our goals, ensuring more young people can benefit from high quality school sport and extracurricular opportunities. Anyway, here is that chat with Nandy on the 2 new domes, why the funding is much lower than cricket hoped for, and whether more live cricket should be on free to air.
We're delighted to be joined by the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, Lisa Nandy. Lisa, thanks for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me. It's great.
So the government has just announced £1.5 million investment in 2 cricket domes in Luton and Lancashire, described as state-of-the-art facilities that will keep the nation's summer sport thriving throughout the winter months. What impact do you think these domes can have on their local communities when they open next year?
I think it's huge, actually, because we're no stranger to bad weather in the UK. But what you see so often is that young people will have a little taster of cricket, they'll get involved, they'll love it, and then suddenly it will all stop. And one of the challenges that we've got is that some of those young people then don't return. We want to make sure that once young people get that love of cricket, that first sort of thrill of what it's like to play cricket, that we keep them involved and we keep that going, not just because we want the whole next generation of amazing cricketers playing at the highest levels, but because often sport is the thing that opens up opportunities to young people. It gives them confidence. It can really be the catalyst for them going on to live richer, larger lives. And over the last decade, we've just seen fewer and fewer young people being able to access those opportunities. Often it depends on either where you live in the country or your parents' ability to pay. And we're absolutely determined as a government that that's going to change.
And these sound like fantastic facilities for Luton and Lancashire, but in April last year, the previous government under Rishi Sunak had promised 16 domes across the UK and 35 million investment. This has been billed as part of the Labour government's overarching plan for change, but it's a long way short of what the ECB were initially expecting, isn't it?
Well, I think I've had these discussions with the ECB. I think they understand that if you commit to 35 million, but there isn't actually any money behind it, then what you end up with is, to use a Lancashire expression, absolutely nout. And so what we've done is come in as a new government. We've made some pretty tough decisions about public spending, but even in a really, really tight economic climate, we're putting money into sport. This 1.5 million is new money that we're putting into these 2 cricket domes, but it sits alongside 400 million that we recently announced for grassroots sporting facilities. One of the biggest challenges that I've got in my job is that we really just are struggling to keep pace with the amount of young people, and particularly young girls, who want to get involved in sport. That is the best problem in the world to have. And we're backing sport. We're putting our money behind it because we know that it is one of the things that genuinely changes people's lives in this country. It opens up opportunities. It creates a healthier nation. It reduces pressure on the NHS. It has huge economic value in the towns, villages and cities where you've got sporting clubs. I know from my own town in Wigan, where rugby league and football, wrestling and other things are huge, that it can draw in crowds and it can help us sustain the whole town. So in terms of everything that this government is trying to achieve, there is a reason why we've put sport at the centre of our plan, and we're determined to continue to investing until we've matched that demand and we've achieved all that we know that sport can achieve.
And why Luton and Lancashire in particular? Why did they get the nod over other possible options?
Well, they're two sites where we think there are significant possibilities, not just ready to go and able to get that set up, but also the two things that they have in common is that they do have a lot of young people there who are absolutely desperate to do more, to play more sport. I'm here in Lancashire at the moment. I live in Wigan, as you probably know, but I've come across to meet some of the young people who are involved in the cricket club, and it is amazing and inspiring to meet young girls in particular who only took up cricket maybe a year or two ago, who haven't, just been telling me they didn't have the best opportunities in school. Often they're either playing in boys' teams or were told they couldn't play at all. But they have come here and they've found not just a lot of opportunities, but they found that real competition, which is exciting, which hooks them and makes them want to stay in the game. So we think these two sites are really great places to start. This is the floor, not the ceiling, of what we think can be achieved by working with the ECB. And we're really excited about that partnership.
I know you've been getting stuck in yourself. I think you're at Leyland Cricket Club this morning, joining some Dynamo sessions. Why do you think cricket in particular is a sport that's worth investing in?
I mean, I think it's a genuinely national sport. And if you look at the history of cricket, it's been one that has been claimed by everybody, regardless of class and background. In northern mining towns, cricket has a long and deep history and is as loved as it is in the leafier parts of the shires. And that is, real strength for us as a country, particularly at a time when it feels that we've lost the ability to understand one another, where we feels that we're often more fractured and divided than ever. Sport has an incredible ability to bring people together. And I think cricket, perhaps more than any other, we feel really passionately that sport has to belong to everybody. And we're determined to open up those opportunities to a generation again, not just based on, who you are and whether your parents can pay, but based on you can live anywhere in the country and you should have the opportunity to be able to pick up a cricket bat and feel that incredible joy that cricket can bring.
And both the ECB and the government are saying they want cricket to be as accessible to as many people as possible. Is it problematic then that England's men's and women's live matches, including next year's Women's T20 World Cup, which is being hosted in England, are hidden behind a paywall that the majority of UK households can't actually afford?
Well, I'd really love more people to be able to see the thrill of live cricket at the most elite levels. I grew up in a house where my dad is absolutely cricket mad. He's from India originally, and when I was over in India recently, they told me that they invented cricket, which I think will probably be contested by a lot of your listeners. But having grown up watching it on TV every summer, I want more people to be able to experience that. But of course, there is a balancing act here, because so many of the revenues that then can sustain amazing facilities like the one that I'm sitting at here in Leyland will come through revenues that are raised by contract deals. What I think has been really, really positive is that over recent years, we've seen cricket itself finding really innovative ways to try and achieve both objectives. So with the hundreds, you've got this deal where the BBC will show certain matches, will show highlights. That's bringing in huge audiences, new audiences for the first time. And Sky has the contract to be able to run the whole thing, which means that for those fanatics, they can watch everything. For people who've never seen it before, they can watch some of it. And that, I think, has really been in the interests of cricket. It's not for government to start imposing solutions. I think especially where you've got cricket being able to find its own innovative solutions, we're here and we stand ready to support them.
So the government wouldn't consider giving England matches, or some England matches, crown jewel status, like the FA Cup final, Wimbledon or the Olympic Games have, in that you ensure they're available on free-to-air TV?
We think the current list strikes the right balance, but of course it's something that we do review and we listen very carefully to people's representations. I can completely understand from the point of view of fans that what people most want is to be able to see as much cricket as possible. But obviously, as the government and the sporting bodies have to think about whether that harms the amount of money that is flowing into the game that then enables young people in places like Lancashire to be able to pick up a cricket bat for the first time, have those opportunities and then go on to have a pathway through to elite level. I've already met one young girl today here who it looks very much like that might be on her horizon. She doesn't come from a particularly wealthy background. She's very reliant on there being great facilities and great opportunities that are provided. So, like I said, we've got to make sure that there is a good balance to strike. At the moment, we think that we've got that roughly right, but we do review that list from time to time.
Ben, where do you stand on the free-to-air debate? Home English Test cricket hasn't been on free-to-air TV since 2005, 20 years ago now. Basically, no other major sport has had its flagship events off free-to-air TV for that length of time. Golf is probably the closest to cricket in that regard, but even then, it's only been a handful of years since the Open was taken off the BBC. Obviously, people want to see cricket on free-to-air TV, but there's the added element of the money and the extraordinary amount of money that Sky have brought into the game for a long time and continue to do so, more than £200 million a year. And I think that's worth bearing in mind in the context of the discussion around the 100 money. The 100 teams have this implied value of just under £1 billion, given what the percentage of the teams have been sold for. The Sky deal is bringing in a comparable amount of money in a fairly short space of time, and historically much more than that. How do you see it? Because obviously the money is crucial, but also the visibility of cricket is basically incomparable to other major sports in the UK.
Yeah, Nandy says that she thinks the balance is about right, or she's talking about the crown jewels list in general. She thinks they've got the balance there right. I would just like to see some cricket on there, and I know that
Test people will say that some 100 games, some white ball games have been on it.
Yeah, but I also think there'd be a way to use the crown jewels list to actually get some cricket that like if I'm a general sports fan, basically, I'm going to seek out and I see something like really major is on is available to watch. There is a chance I'm going to watch that. Whereas if I see something that's like, and I know the 100 is obviously good, we like watching the cricket in it, fine, but something that I don't quite understand what it is on.
It's not event television.
Exactly, yeah, and so one way to do that with cricket would be so in the 2019 Labour manifesto they said they wanted to put the Cricket World Cup on that crown jewels list. With rugby, it's just the World Cup final that's on that list. It might be possible to say all Cricket World Cup finals should be on free-to-air TV. That wouldn't be taking loads away from Sky, and even if Sky were to kick up a stink, it wouldn't be taking money away from the ECB because the rights money goes to the ICC in that instance. And I think I would like to see a test match each summer put on free-to-air TV. Now, Lords is the obvious one because it's Lords, it's the most famous cricket ground. The only thing is that the pitch isn't always the most conducive to high quality, high octane test cricket entertainment. Maybe make it the Headingley test, or maybe make it the deciding test, or maybe there's a way just to say it's a test match and you can
first
have it.
Test of the summer, and,
exactly.
and that way you see a spread of the grounds over a few years. The one thing I've never understood why this hasn't happened. So something akin to this has happened before in the 2019 World Cup. Channel 4 broadcast the World Cup final alongside the Sky coverage. That was a very last minute move that was done. I surely think this is a good thing for Sky. In the long term, if you have one test match a summer, that's not taking that much from what Sky provide overall. They'll still be showing that on Sky. And surely by making test cricket more visible in England, you are increasing the likelihood that people down the line get into cricket and then at one point in time or another take out a Sky subscription. And I think ultimately, we've had this discussion over the years plenty of times, but it just makes it quite an exclusive thing. If test cricket is something that you can only watch if you can afford a Sky subscription, I don't think we talk about how mad that is enough. Like if you take football, our national sport, for example, sure, Sky Sports and most of the Premier League, all of the Premier League is behind a paywall, but the main footballing events, the national tournaments, the major tournaments that happen in the summers, they are completely on free-to-air TV, and that becomes a national talking point. Cricket doesn't have that opportunity. Simply, you might get the very end of an epic series. So there's been moments in the 23 Ashes, maybe the final day of the 25 India series that have become more of a conversation. But I think cricket's probably missed out on a lot of those moments just because people can't watch it.
Yeah, and there's a lot sort of talked about that, how people consume things has changed. Maybe free-to-air is less of a big deal than it was, back in 2005, which is probably true to an extent. But I just think, why would you not attack this thing from as many angles as possible? And it's going to be so rare that people are going to be captured by, people are also consuming things on their phones now, but very few people are just consuming things exclusively on their phones, or people aren't consuming things on their phones and then being like, right, that's me done. That's my entire relationship with that sport. It becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. Snooker's the sport that I've got more and more into. And, sure, I enjoyed watching, clips of amazing escapes from snookers that appear on my social media feed. And then I'll go onto YouTube and watch, Ronnie O'Sullivan's Fastest 147 breaks. And then it'll pop up on the BBC that, you can watch this, the whole Masters or whatever. It's like, great, now I can that's my week sorted. And that is you want to just, and for some people, maybe that'll be the first thing they see is the thing that pops up on their TV. They will be flicking through the channels, or it will come up on there. I think that, I really think there should be a way to make it work. So I would like to see, a test. Don't know exactly how to choose which test, but a test that's not so important. And World Cup finals on the crown jewels list, and that is not taking loads away from the Sky so much that it will bankrupt the ECB, and they've got another revenue stream now anyway. So.
Yeah, 100%. Next up, here's Butch on whether the Blast revamp for 2026 was a missed opportunity. Something a bit different today. So it was confirmed a couple of weeks ago that the structure for the Blast will be different from 2026. I know that this was discussed a couple of weeks ago, but I was away and I didn't want to miss out on it all. I know structure chat can be tedious, but I do think this is significant in that it is a structural change happening alongside a one-off event. That is the enormous cash injection the county game is receiving following the partial sale of the 100 side. So a reminder that the non-100 host counties are receiving a payment of £24 million each, and the 100 host counties are receiving £18 million each. So previously, we had 14 Blast group stage games played across 2 blocks. To simplify the debate slightly, counties wanted 7 home Blast games because they needed the money from ticket sales. The players in general wanted fewer games due to the occasionally brutal turnaround times and the overall compacting of the season. But the Blast has also struggled recently. It is basically impossible to follow the competition closely given the volume of games, and attendances have been falling fast since the introduction of the 100. According to a piece in The Observer early this year, Blast attendances have fallen by 20% since 2019, but at some grounds it's way higher, 40% at Lord's, 45% at Old Trafford. So the structure from next year is 3 groups of 6. You play every team in your group twice, and then you have 1 home game and 1 away game against a side outside your group. Butch, I think a lot of this is sensible. It appeases the players who wanted fewer games. The teams don't need to put on as many games as they did before because of that extra money. But I put it to you, given this is a one-off opportunity to revamp county cricket, is this a missed opportunity for a genuine rethink of bigger picture questions? How does the county game more generally engage more fans? I think that whilst this is sensible, it's not really addressing the more fundamental problems.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't radical. It ticks a lot of boxes in terms of shortening the tournament, having less playing days, therefore less travel days, less all the rest of it, and in a funny way, going down to 3 groups of 6, it kind of makes it easier to follow for the fans of teams who are in a particular group. I guess the games will be more structured. There'll be fewer of them all on the same day in your group anyway, and all of the teams, all 18 counties, still have the opportunity to win the Blast, which had the alternative perhaps come into play, which would have been, first and second division of Blast, that then wouldn't have been the case. The only thing I guess that I'm not sure about is the fact that I think scheduling wise, you're looking at sort of June, July as a single block, which then runs into the 100 in August. So potentially you've got like a 10 weeks of the summer, which is taken up with short form hit and giggle cricket, which, we're getting towards the back end of the 100 now, and you kind of like, I feel as though people are crying out for something that isn't short form hit and giggle cricket. And in this new proposal, or this new structure, it looks as though there's going to be, it not just double, but double and a half of that throughout the heart of the summer. And so that for me would be the main sticking point. The rest of it, I kind of am on board with, in terms of trying to simplify it, in terms of trying to make to play less games, and also in terms of sort of looking out for the players and their sort of, their welfare, their well-being, and the travel and the quick turnarounds. So look, I mean, I'd be interested to hear what alternatives might have been. I mean, the other side of it is that with it running so close and so much into the 100 coming up, there is an opportunity there for draft-wise for the 100 to kind of make it feel as though the two things are together or incorporated within one another in a way that the Blast and the 100 have not been since the start. I mean, they were literally pitched against each other in the beginning, which didn't help in terms of the rancorous nature of its greeting when it was introduced. So there is an opportunity there to kind of make the two things feel as though they are relevant to one another. That'll be something, I guess, for the organisers to kind of look into and decide as to how they might do that down the line. But there is an opportunity for that.
Yeah, I suppose we have the 100 wildcards at the moment, which take place closer to the start of the 100, where generally T20 Blast form is taken into consideration. But yeah, I think worth remembering that this summer we had 4 rounds of the championship in June and July, which is actually slightly higher than we've had before. And this, you can't really see space for that if you have the Blast in one go leading up to the 100, getting it all done before the 100 starts. So I think
no. Well, I mean that's another part of it, isn't it? Because whatever changes are made to whichever competition, something else always ends up sort of suffering as a consequence, simply because we have 4 months maximum of summertime to cram everything into. And so how this impacts the championship, which is already very much front loaded to April, May and June anyway, it would appear that it would put even more pressure upon that competition.
It feels, from a cricketing point of view though, and I'm saying this as someone who wholeheartedly loves the Blast, I think you can often have amazing atmosphere at games. I always think that quarterfinals week is one of the best weeks in the English calendar.
Yeah, agreed.
I just think that obviously this is such a big moment for the domestic game. This cash injection, you can only sell the family gold once, right? And that's what we're doing now. And this money, it looks like people are plenty of very sensible recommendations for it. It looks like a lot of the counties that are not traditional international venues look like they're going to revamp their facilities to ensure that they can make more money from their venue across the calendar year. That's all really important in making the counties more financially self-sustainable. But from an overall popularity of county cricket itself, it feels like this is a good thing for people who already follow it. This is a good thing for the players involved. I'm not sure this is going to make a massive difference in terms of the overall popularity of the Blast. I wonder, you hear a lot of people who are anti-100 suggesting that, well, we could have just had a 2-divisional Blast and that would have been better than 100. I sort of think, well, this was the opportunity to do something like that. Actually, be a bit cheeky and almost make the Blast something that could compete almost with 100 in terms of the quality that you saw in that top division. People are not going to like it because their county might start the season and it's impossible for them to win the thing. But I wonder if that would have been a way to generate a little bit more interest for people who aren't already watching games.
I honestly don't know. I mean, say, for example, the matter of overseas players and having, teams being able to sort of make picks that supplement and complement their squad at the top end, that kind of generate interest for the club by dint of them being sort of big enough names to do so. With this proposal, that seems more likely and more viable because of the shortness of the period of time. So it's more likely that you'd be able to get hold of one or two good names, top class cricketers, and keep them for the course of the tournament, which is impossible in the Blast as the way it stands at the moment. I mean, you only have to look at what happens between the end of the group stage as things are now, and what the teams will look like, what Surrey will look like, for example, when it comes to quarterfinal time with international one-day internationals happening at the same time, and then that affects other teams too. So it's an opportunity there to have higher quality overseas players pitch up for your team for a longer period of time. I get what you're saying, but I still can't see a world in which the county T20 Blast is able to do, no matter what you do to it, is able to do to the wider sport that the 100 is trying to do. I still think that the county Blast is very much still for your county fans, and those who are you hope to bring along into being potential county fans in the future. I can't see a world in which it is able to sort of step out of that, no matter what you try to do. Particularly given that there is another competition there that is going to run straight off the back of it. And so I just think it's the best of a bad bunch. But as always, I'm willing to have my ears and eyes open and listen to sort of viable suggestions in which that might not be the case, in which that could be improved upon and made all singing, all dancing, and much more attractive.
Finally, we're approaching the end of the 100. We know who is we know that Oval have effectively topped the table already. Who's caught your eye in the last week or so? Any names, any individual performances that have been particularly exciting?
Well, I mean, obviously, the obvious one would be Jordan Cox from the Invincibles. Sam Curran as well, who mentioned last week. His nous-ing gameplay, I think, as much as anything else, being one of those players that kind of, given situations in matches, seems to be able to sort of bring out the best of himself when things are tough and the team needs a man to sort of drag you over the line. Who else? Nathan Souter. I mean, it's very Oval Invincibles orientated at the moment, but those three. Obviously, Sonny Baker from a couple of weeks back. I mean, his team have been in the doldrums a little bit, but he's definitely been a shining light. Rayan Ahmed has shone brightly at times for Trent Rockets. So I mean, there have been a few. I mean, there have been a lot of sort of really, really cool games in the last couple of weeks or so. We've always had the issue with some of the surfaces not being quite as much fun to watch cricket on as possible. But I think in general, the standard of cricket has been pretty darn good in the men's competition. And judging by the reaction of the crowds wherever we've been, people are enjoying it. And the argument, the noise against it, seems to have died down somewhat. People have been beaten into submission by the whole thing, and it's becoming very much a part of the summer, as though it had always been there. And I know there'll be people throwing things at the at the screen or at their phones listening to me say that. But that's how this year has felt. There's still the same old sort of nonsense with the with the rules and the fives and the not changing ends and all that sort of stuff, which actually doesn't register a great deal, I don't think, with the watching public. But beyond that, I think it's proving itself to be a higher quality competition than you are ever going to get in a blast competition with 18 teams in it. And that at the end of the day is kind of what it's all about. But never mind what the reasons were given by the people selling it to us at the very beginning. But at the end of it all, it's watchable. There's some good cricketers on show, and there's been some excellent games.
Yeah, I think it's certainly been the best year in the men's competition, at least so far. Let's leave it there, Butch. Plenty to look forward to over the weekend, and in less than a week's time, we're going to have England playing some white ball cricket against South Africa as well. So lots of the summer still to go.
Very much looking forward to it.
England ODIs against South Africa kick off next week. South Africa have got some travelling to do as they have been in action in Australia. South Africa won the ODI series 2-1. Keshav Maharaj with 5 for 33 in the opener. Matthew Bretzker with more runs in the second. He was followed up by Alungi Ngidi 5 for. And then Australia got their own back in the finale, winning by 276 runs after they piled on their second highest ODI score ever. 431 for 200s for Head, Marsh and Green. Green's 118 came off just 55 balls, the second fastest ODI 100 by an Aussie. Cooper Connolly took 5 for 22 in the defence. The best ever figures by an Australia spinner in a men's ODI. So quite a fun series over in Oz there. Ben, to finish the show this week, your Metro Bank Minute, everything from the One Day Cup in a minute.
Well, I think if you want all the happenings, go to the Patreon, as Yaz said, where we do a weekly counter show. I'm going to mostly focus on the on yesterday, which we didn't cover on that show, but a few highlights from before that week and start the clock now. Matt Milnes took 7 for 38, including a hat-trick and a seagull stealing his ice cream. Ice cream? Banana. Yeah. Big, strong Alex Green took his third fifer for Thriller Machines Leicestershire, but they're out. Tom Lammonby went 100, 5 for 100 in consecutive games for Somerset after a quiet start. But that finish yesterday, and if you could have had a sort of win predictor table, an as it stands table using win predictor, it would have been great. You would have been able to put it on t-shirts, would have gone viral. Group A, firstly, the not so good group, we'll do that first. Between Essex and Hampshire, still pretty good. Essex needed to win and Hampshire didn't, which looked a decent shout at the halfway stage. Essex made 366, Hampshire needed to chase 214, and then Essex almost lost. Derby with 243 for 1 at one point, and Hampshire flew out of the blocks before stumbling. Needed 17 off 6 from the exciting Ben Mays to get them over the line. He's one to watch. And then Group B, even better, an unbelievable finish there. So Somerset, Middlesex, Warwickshire, all vying for 2 places on the same number of points going into it. So basically, if all 3 won, net run rate. If all 3 lost, net run rate. Otherwise, if you won, you were going through. Somerset won fairly comfortably, Archie Vaughan 100, but the other 2 games were amazing. Warwickshire were cruising, 166 for 2, and then 204 for 3, chasing 280, and then collapsed 258 all out. But their net run rate was better than Middlesex's, so had Middlesex lost, Warwickshire still would have gone through. And Middlesex were dead in this game. They were 127 for 6, chasing 292, needing more than 7s, when Nathan Fernandez and 17-year-old Seb Morgan, who was playing just his 3rd List A game, put on a century stand to get them back in the game. And then still there's drama. Morgan falls, Henry Brooks falls, and then first ball the last over, Fernandez on 92 hits it to the man on the boundary. So with 8 needed to win, there's the last wicket pair come together and they just get them over the line. 4th ball, the other Cornwall skies one, but 2 fielders sort of look at each other, falls just between them. If they'd just put on them there, I'm sure they would have taken it, but no. And they run 2 off that ball and he just gets over the infielder's head next ball. So they won by 1 wicket off the penultimate ball of the game to seal a spot in the One Day Cup knockouts.
It looked like they were properly down and out as well. I can't believe you didn't even mention the best bit. You know the answer to this.
Franco.
Yeah. The Glamorgan, 18-year-old Liverpool-born left-arm spinner, Romano Carmelo Mollica Franco, who's been playing for Glamorgan in the One Day Cup. We took a 3 for yesterday, 3:59, as Glamorgan picked up their first win of the competition in their last game. That is it from today's show. Ridiculously, given that the One Day Cup group stages finished yesterday, the knockouts begin tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, the knockouts of the 100. And then at the start of next week, if you're not joining us on the Patreon, the next time we'll see you is a preview show on the England-South Africa ODIs.